What is up, everybody, and welcome to my ranking of the Wonka live action films, of which I will be talking about 3. I know that there was a Tom and Jerry movie. I'm sure there's some other animated takes on the Willy Wonka world, but we're just going to be talking about the original film from the 70s, the Tim Burton remake, and the recently released Wonka. So if you haven't seen my review of Wonka, definitely check that out. I'll put a link to that whenever we get to that film. But one thing that I said there that I think is important to note before I talk about these films is that, in general, I'm really not a fan of musicals. There is only one in my entire life that I have ever enjoyed, and we will be talking about it in this list, so I won't tell you which one it is, or it's obvious what my number 1 will be. But musicals, just not my thing whatsoever. So my take on these 3 films might be a little different than yours if you are somebody that absolutely loves musicals, you love musical numbers, you love movies that just have that tone and that jovial sense to them. I'm typically not, so maybe what I say in this video is a hot take, or maybe not. We'll find out. Coming in at number 3 for me is going to be Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, something else that I think is important to note that I probably should have said, I'm really not a big fan of Tim Burton's movies. I can count on one hand how many I actually enjoy. While I think that he has a really cool style, and I think that there are certain elements that he brings to his characters and to his movies that are very distinctly Tim Burton, and that's something to be admired, for the most part, his stuff tends to get a little too weird for my taste. And so when I heard this movie greenlit years ago, I was morbidly curious, but I was definitely a bit fearful of what that collaboration between, yet again, Johnny Depp and Tim Burton would turn out to be with the Willy Wonka storyline. Now, there's things that I do like about here. I like the art direction, I like the set design, I like the Burton look that he gives to the chocolate factory and this town, and even just the way that the characters are dressed and some of their quirkiness, like with the kids and with the parents. I really like Freddie Highmore as Charlie. You know, he's somebody that I eventually grew to like so much more after this with things like Bates Motel. But the big, gigantic, glaring issue with this movie that just makes it that I don't enjoy it whatsoever by the end of it is Johnny Depp's take on Willy Wonka. I find it to be creepy. I find it to be weird. I find it to be uncomfortable. I don't think that it really brings out any of the elements of Willy Wonka that most of us like and appreciate that character for. And I don't really understand what they were going for in taking the character in that direction. I mean, like, I don't want to get too dark here, but every single time I watch this movie, I get very uncomfortable with what Willy Wonka's actual motivations are for what he's doing, to the point where it feels like, okay, do you actually want to give the chocolate factory out of the goodness of your heart to this kid? Or do you just want to touch him later? Because you're fucking weird.
You're really weird.
They try to build out his backstory with his father, and he's got like this ridiculous over-the-top Tim Burton version of braces, and his father despises chocolate because he's a dentist, and that fucks him up psychologically. It's like a Rob Zombie's Halloween version of like, we don't need to know any of that weird shit, and it doesn't add anything to the character. In fact, it actually takes away a lot of what I like about Willy Wonka, which is the mystery. Is it interesting to look at? Yes. Are there some entertainment value to be had with just this core storyline that is absolutely timeless? And even, you know, the musical numbers that they go for here, I don't prefer them to the original, but it's interesting to have the Oompa Loompas especially take on different genres of music. Interesting enough. Can I appreciate that? Yes, I absolutely can. But when you decimate the character of Willy Wonka and you completely remove the heartwarming side of the end of the story with Willy Wonka just loving the fact that Charlie wins by the end and giving hope and giving a future to a family that had anything but, like, all of that is just removed here for weird awkwardness. You get to the end like, oh, I guess we have one kid left. Well, I guess you're the winner. Well, whatever. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Wonka. Now, this is a movie that I liked, didn't love. You know, it's something that I think, especially seeing it in the holiday season, taking my family as a group to the movies to go check it out, is the best type of experience you can have with this. I'm not a big musical guy. There's a lot of musical numbers in this movie, a bit too much for my taste, but for the most part, I liked all the songs. I liked all the musical numbers, so that made the pill a little easier to swallow. I really like Timothée Chalamet's version of this character. I think that it's unique enough, but it also very much taps into the elements of that character that I feel are important and necessary. I think that the overall storyline of, you know, him trying to bring forward this legacy and kind of realize his dreams with the memory lingering of his mother, and also getting involved with these other people that are in a very bad situation, and his hopefulness and his dreams kind of help them achieve theirs as well. There's a lot of really nice, charming, heartwarming elements to this movie that I really enjoyed. The things holding it back was, aside from just a few too many musical numbers for my taste, is that I felt the villains were a little bit too stock. You know, their motivations, their personalities are things that we have seen in movies like this a dozen times. I think there was potential to do something a little bit more complex with them that they just didn't really bother with. And there were certain emotional elements here that I kind of wanted to spend a little bit more time in more traditional storytelling form. Again, just kind of another way of saying a few too many musical numbers for me. But one other thing I really appreciated, which I think really brought this home for me, was that I felt they did a nice, subtle, and respectful job of giving you little ties to the original Willy Wonka that very much makes this a prequel to that movie, while at the same time it stands on its own enough and those ties are not overtly stated to the point where you can watch Wonka as its own thing, and if they do a sequel or build out a little franchise with this, it can be its own thing without needing the ties to the original. So I appreciated the subtlety there, and I appreciated actually having that be like the canonical future of this Willy Wonka, not whatever the hell Johnny Depp was doing. But number one for me is the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Not just the only musical that I have ever genuinely loved in my life, but one of my favorite movies of all time. This is a comfort movie if there ever was one. If I'm ever in a bad mood, or if I'm just not in the mood to watch anything, if I throw this on, I am instantly in a better mood. I think that the musical numbers are great. Again, huge praise coming from somebody who doesn't really like musicals all that much. I think a lot of the themes and the messages that this movie gives about hope and about, you know, the rich versus the poor, and people who are deserving versus those that are not deserving, and being grateful and having good character, like very important, timeless things to be discussing. I absolutely adore Gene Wilder's take on this character. I think that there's enough weird and kooky and creepy about him without overshadowing all of the good side of him, the whimsical, magical, mysterious nature of him, and the very heartwarming and giving side of him that comes out in the last 5-10 minutes of the movie. I think that all of the design of the sets and the design of the characters and the Oompa Loompas and the Chocolate Factory and all of that, this is from the early 70s, and I still think that it's damn near timeless. They did it in a way to where it just doesn't really age for me. It doesn't feel like a movie that as time has left behind and we need something updated like what Tim Burton tried to do. Just never feels like that type of story for me. So this is one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the most timeless movies of all time, and I have little to nothing negative to say about it. Hell, even sorry-ass Grandpa Joe, which has just given so many people endless amounts of memes in recent culture. I even love that fucking guy. Just dancing out of bed. They're sitting there and being waited upon for 20-something years of his poor-ass family. He gets a golden ticket. Oh shit, I can walk. It's a miracle.
I can see. I have legs.
So I don't know how many people actually have not seen the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but this is one of those movies that I would recommend to literally anybody. Even if you're somebody like me that tends to go for the darker storytelling and horror movies and action films, and you don't like musicals whatsoever, even this movie is for you. So check out Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory if you do nothing else during the holiday season. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all my 2023 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my review of Wonka up here for you to check out more in-depth thoughts. Please like, share, hit that subscribe button down below. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.